Homeschooling. That's right. Homeschooling, a phrase that was barely uttered before and yet today is on the lips of almost every parent around the world. Great day to you. Today is the 20th of April, 2020. My name is Arjun Iyer and I will be your host today. I am a life coach, a speaker, and a writer. But today is not about me. Today is about an incredible person that I have with me. She is a mother who has been making waves in the area of homeschooling. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our guest, Mala Malhotra. Welcome, Mala. Say hello to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Arjun. It's my complete pleasure to be here with you all today. Thank you, Arjun, for inviting me. And I look forward to this session and sharing some tips and strategies and tools that has worked with me as a mother. Thank you.
Great. Great. Before we get into the topic of homeschooling, Mala, and your fabulous application of it, could I take a couple of minutes to introduce you to our audience?
Sure. Thank you, Arjun. Go ahead.
Great. So Mala is originally from the city of Delhi in India. She came to Dubai in 2004 and has lived in this fair city for 16 years now. For 3 years, Mala worked as crew with Emirates Airlines, traveling around the world and learning the nuances of people and customer communication. Mala has always had a passion for teaching and education, so she joined the Learning and Development Unit of Emirates Airlines, and for 12 years, she trained and coached the crew and staff of Emirates Airlines. Today, Mala is an independent consultant, a trainer, and a life coach. Her company is called Thrive. Apart from delivering soft skill workshops for business groups, Mala is adept in and has specialized in the area of parent coaching. In recent times, Mala's system of homeschooling has gained the attention of hundreds of parents in the region. And this is the very reason why I invited her to speak today to parents about her tested and approved methods that have worked wonders, not only for her kids, but for other kids as well, across age groups and cultures. Mala is now being invited to speak at webinars to parents across the globe about her holistic homeschooling methods. What excites me most about her work is that her happy and holistic homeschooling system bears all the trademarks of what I refer to as conscious parenting. And of course, most importantly, Mala herself has 2 beautiful children. Her daughter Alicia is 6 and her son Arav is 2.5. Without any further ado, I present our guest today, an homeschooling connoisseur, Mala Malhotra. Thank you, Mala, for the value that you are bringing to parents through this video and the work that you're doing through all the webinars. Welcome.
Thank you, Arjun, for a very warm welcome and a very beautiful introduction once again. It will be my pleasure and my contribution to the community of parents, kids, guardians, and educators if through this session I'm able to impart and share some tips that would work for them to address this big elephant that we have in the room today, which is homeschooling.
Fabulous. Excellent. So Mala, let's get right into it and talk about homeschooling, all right? Now, let's start at the very beginning. Let's set the scene for effective homeschooling at a very fundamental level. And as a prelude, what are 1 or 2 suggestions that you make to parents even before they start the homeschooling process?
Right. Arjun, I feel it is very important before we try to address something, we need to first recognize and accept what's happening and why it's happening. So like we said, COVID-19, quarantine, lockdown, it says this has led to homeschooling, and a lot has changed in our environment these days. This is something that mankind across the globe on this planet Earth has never experienced earlier. So there is definitely going to be some kind of adjustment to this massive change that's happening outside, and I feel that we are still somewhere in the beginning or in the middle of adjusting to that big change that's happening around us. So homeschooling is a result of all that's happening around, and we must recognize that it is not going to be perfect from day one. This is something that we are all evolving with, be it educators, be it kids, be it parents, moms, dads, guardians. So let's just take it a day at a time and not try to make it perfect, because I honestly abide by this formula in my life: perfection is equivalent to misery. And it is very, very applicable to today's time. If as a parent, especially I would speak as a mother, we take a lot on ourselves and we try to achieve perfection in home care, in self care, in child care. In current scenario, I think a very good idea would be to not achieve perfection, but to tell yourself, I am doing the best that I can do, and absorb and learn some tips and tricks that can help you sail smooth through this homeschooling process, and not aim at achieving 100% perfection. So that is what I would recommend to the mothers. Even before we jump onto what are the tips and tricks, it's important to recognize that we are evolving through this process as we are going through it, because it is a completely new change that we are dealing with.
Okay, excellent. This is really fantastic. So you spoke about adjustment, and you also spoke about a new process. Now, before we bring about this adjustment, another word for adjustment is change. And we've got to get acceptance for change within the home environment, which is the family. What have you done to bring about acceptance to this new reality, to actually incorporate this adjustment? How have you communicated this, and what format have you used to get the message across and get a buy-in from everybody in the family?
So, Arjun, I am focusing on homeschooling as a current subject that we have at hand. I feel anything in life that you resist will persist. So if you focus on negative emotions will increase and will lead to negative results. If you focus on positive emotions around anything, be it homeschooling. So let's talk about what are the positive things that homeschooling has brought us in our lives today. I feel, speaking about my personal experience, husbands in particularly have not been that much involved in kids learning and schooling earlier, but in current scenario, role expectations has definitely changed. Our homes have become offices, our homes have become schools, and both the spouses are equally participating when it comes to supporting the learning of the kid. So that's one positive that has clearly come out. The other one being myself being a working woman, and I think I'm resonating with a lot of working women out there who are listening to me currently. We've always been feeling guilty about not giving enough time to our kids to support their learning, and this homeschooling has offered us brilliant opportunity to be more engaged in their learning. There were certain subjects in my daughter's timetable. I was only wondering, what do they cover in this slot of timetable showing as concepts? What do they cover in this slot showing as computing skills? So now it has definitely brought me many steps closer to what my kid is actually learning in the school.
Great, excellent. And so I think awareness, empathy, all of this has grown, or there is a potential for this to grow within the family environment. Yeah. Let's talk directly about communication now. So do you have some kind of a method in which, before you start the homeschooling process, to to tell individual family members what is expected of them, what is expected of you, and how you go about the process before you actually start the homeschooling? Do you end up having some kind of a discussion, a meeting, and how do you do that?
Rightly said, Arjun, it's very important to have some kind of a discussion and a meeting. So we are from Dubai, and in Dubai, it's almost 3 weeks of homeschooling by now, depending on what part of the world you are joining us in today. Whichever stage you are at homeschooling, if you haven't done that already, I think it's a um, it would be a good initiative to organize that family meeting. And by doing so, you would be sharing expectations with the kids of what is happening outside in the current world. Depending on the age of the kid, you can choose to use the language that you want to use. Talk about how this outside world is impacting our inside world, our homes right now, why this homeschooling is happening, and what are the expectations around it. um, sh- talk talk openly with your spouse. As moms, we usually say, if you don't ask it, you don't get it. So same that applies to our spouses as well. Be very clear about your expectations. If both of you are working parents, take chances, share routine, coordinate your routine with each other. For example, speaking about me, today is Monday and it's a working day here in Dubai. Since I'm doing this interview with you, I communicated well in advance with my spouse that for this duration, could you please take over. So sharing expectations and being careful of the language that you're using as well will only enhance cooperation and prevent burnout. So be mindful that you're not using the blaming language with your family members and spouse. Instead, you are just being more vulnerable and open to the fact that you need support um, to make sure that homeschooling is more effective, and most importantly, like I said, save yourself from that burnout.
So, what language have you used with your children to bring them up to speed with this new reality? How have you told them? Have you told them anything, or have you gotten them to express what they're feeling and thinking in this situation?
Very interestingly, Arjun, we as parents tend to underestimate the understanding level of our children. So, as an experiment, before I was wondering one day, does my child understand what's happening outside, a week into quarantine? And I asked my daughter, do you know why you are at home all the time? Why we are not going to school? Why are you not meeting your friends? And I was very surprised when she shared what she thinks about it. She told me there is a virus outside and we have to prevent ourselves from that, and we have to make sure we keep washing our hands. So it was very impressive for me to know that a 6-year-old has quite a bit of an idea of what's happening and why it's happening. So I think a good start for the parents out there would be to first check what your child has understood so far, must have grasped so much from the environment, and then just build on to the information that the child has. And if there are questions, because kids ask variety of questions, then that just sometimes startle us and we don't have the answers for. So completely fine to tell the kids that I don't have the answer for it right now, and I'll get back to you as and when I have the answer. Avoid lying to the kids and be vulnerable. Ensure there is an environment and the vibe there you are creating in the house wherein they are empathizing with you and you are empathizing with them.
And that's a very good point you made. Rather than telling kids what's going on outside, ask them what they're already aware of, and they might surprise you. And the other good point that you made was about being very honest, open with them about the reality that's happening right now, which kind of gets them to also play ball and buy into the complete situation. Let's talk about parents for a minute now. We've been speaking about kids, and later on, we're going to come into some more of the processes you've used in homeschooling. But with parents, even particularly folks who are working, running their businesses, and going through all sorts of challenges, what do you have to say to parents with regard to managing their own emotional state, and how that has an impact on the child's emotional state? So what do you say to that? Yeah.
Arjun, the fact that you are going through this situation or you're growing through this situation is completely up to you. And as said, kids don't do what we say, kids do what we do. So completely our emotions, our anxiety level, our good vibe, our bad vibe is absorbed by the kids, and they play onto what we are doing, not what we are saying. So there is a need for that mindset transformation. There is a need to make that mindset shift, to accept what's happening and to think about what is in my control right now. So COVID-19 is not in our control, quarantine is not in our control, but what is in our control is the environment that we create inside the house. As the mother, as the leader of the house, we owe it to our children to make sure that we take good care of ourselves and we have our own positivity mindset intact, so that it passes on to our children. Use of positive language is extremely important in the house. Even when you're talking with your family members, you're watching news, ensure you're not overexposing your children to the news and to these negative talks. Creating that right environment and giving them the right information, I feel it is something that is in our control and should be in check by the parents.
Hmm. And so the onus is really on the parents, because they, in a manner of speaking, are creating the emotional environment by being a particular way emotionally themselves, isn't it? So it kind of
Absolutely.
takes me to leadership, and you as a mom, dad, or a single mom or a single dad sometimes are the leader, and you're a trend setter of sorts with your mindset and your emotion set as well. And I
Absolutely.
think that kind of forms a foundation for how the kids now feel, and those feelings that the kids feel causes them to behave or not behave in a particular way.
Yeah.
uh, getting That's very good. And getting into now the homeschooling process, I'm a student of human motivation, and whenever I coach people, I'm very cognizant about pain and pleasure as being the key motivators for human beings. And I think, as it is with adults, it is the same with kids as well. uh, I guess what I'd like you to talk about is motivation, homeschooling, and how do you get kids motivated to follow a process? And then how do you keep them motivated to stay committed to that process? What have you done, and what have you helped other parents to do in this regard?
So, when we talk about process, what directly comes to my mind is having a routine. So, first we need to make sure that we have a proper routine that we are following, because kids love routine. So, just like the regular school days earlier, you were following a certain routine wherein all the family members go back to the sleep at same time, they wake up in the morning at same time, shower, breakfast, physical activity, and then be ready mentally and physically to get into homeschooling. Approximately by 8:30 in the morning, most of the homeschooling start. So all these activity that needs to be done earlier to get yourself in the right mindset, make sure that you don't miss out on these activities. Also, when we talk about routine, it is important that you align your own routine with the kids' routine as well. If you are a working mom, make sure that your routine is aligned that way. If you are a mom who's taking care of the housework, etc., ensure that your routines are aligned in that manner. If you have more than one kid in the house, ensure their routines are aligned in terms of the break time, so they don't get distracted. As much as possible, give them the breaks together. That is one way of keeping them motivated as well. They look forward to the break time to play, to focus, and then have a break to come back. It just keeps them more motivated. That's one of the methods as well. um, the other one, I would say, Arjun, that very important to keep in mind that this period is not a holiday period. So if you are coming as a parent, I'm talking about, and it passes on to the kids as well. If you are having that kind of a mindset that this is a holiday period, it's just all play and fun, that would not be the right approach to use in here. The right approach would be to say that homeschooling is helping me to create the normalcy as far as possible. It is ensuring that I have certain routine in place. Because if I tell you to think of a reverse situation, what would happen in complete absence of homeschooling? then you would have no routine at all. So it is actually helping you to ensure that kids are waking up in the morning, their learning is continuous, most importantly. So earlier we talked about achieving perfection. So I am inviting you here to have that mind shift change, that it is not aiming for perfection, not aiming at, comparing yourself with other moms or other children, how they're performing, but to look at this as that it's helping me to have some kind of a routine in place. And if you don't have a routine in place, it can lead to stress and anxiety, because routine is an answer to predictability, it's an answer to safety. So strongly recommending that you have a routine for yourself and you have a routine for the kid that you follow throughout the day, especially when it comes to weekdays. Definitely you can be more relaxed on weekends. And by routine, I don't mean following it like a regiment in an army. No, I don't mean that. Have flexibility around it, build in break times, etc. But some kind of a structure will definitely ensure that the kid is motivated in the manner that this is my study time, and after I finish my study, this will be my play time. And speaking about coming back to the motivations that you said earlier, there are various motivational mechanisms, reward, recognize, etc., that are in place. Even when the kids are going to school, teachers are using a lot of motivational mechanism. You can use some of them at home as well. For younger kids, the stamping works, or making a heart on the back of their palm, that works for them. For a little bit older kids, point system in the house, or even bribing them. I mean, I would use bribing in this context as something positive. All the parents, we tell our kids, if you have this piece of vegetable, you earn yourself a piece of cake. So similarly, if you feel that you can build some positive bribing or motivational rewarding recognizing system around homeschooling, that will definitely motivate the kids further to be more engaged. I hope I answered
Fantastic.
that question, Arjun. It had various
Yes, that
aspects
was
to
very good.
it.
Yes, yes, it was actually full of a lot of information, and I would really encourage our viewers to rewind the video and listen carefully to some of the points that you made. To me, when you speak about routine, what comes to mind is the word discipline. And discipline is when you have a switch in your mindset and you do what is required to be done. Have you had a situation where a parent has spoken to you about their son or daughter not coming on board with discipline and being lazy, for example, to get into the homeschooling process, whether it is doing of homework or an assignment? And have you used any tools, particularly from the trainings that you have conducted, whether it's with NLP and anchors, etc., to get children to make that shift from, hey, we're at home to we're at school, even though we're physically in the house? Have you used any specific motivational mechanisms in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely, Arjun. Like I said earlier, that our homes have become schools and offices. So, sometimes that boundary between school and home and office and home becomes very blurry. So, there are certain anchors which we can use to our advantage and benefit to create that boundary between school and home, let's say. So, some of those anchors that we can use. One that straight away comes to my mind is to make sure that they have a workspace. The kids have a study space or a workspace in the house. Reporting to the workspace means showing up. That's like telling your mind that this is the area where I need to now sit and start studying. That can definitely help to minimize distraction too. And I'm not saying again by any means that be rigid about that study space. Definitely not. But as far as possible, when you start your day at your workspace in the morning, it's telling the child to switch from a relaxed or a restful state of mind being at home to now being alert and to be more output oriented, because now the school time starts. And similarly, for work clothes or for active clothes as well, clothes also create that boundary between rest and relaxed time. that we have at home between and taking you from there to the schooling time. So like you said, if something has worked for someone, a good friend of mine, after attending my webinar last week on homeschooling itself, got back to me and she sent me a beautiful audio message saying, Mala, I use this tip on ensuring that the kids are dressed up in active clothes, and I dressed up my son in school uniform. He was extremely distracted during the school hours, and I was just not able to crack it, how to make sure that he actually sits there and finishes his tasks. So I started dressing him up in school uniform, and I have seen a complete paradigm shift. He is suddenly more focused, he is more aligned to the task, and we are just now able to complete all the tasks that we are assigned. Sir Arjun, all these tips are good, and they are working with a lot of parents. However, one very important thing that I would like to highlight here is, see what works for your own child, because each child is different. I believe having a workspace is good, but sometimes even in their school, they are not doing the complete spending the complete day in one classroom itself. They go to music room for music, they go to library for reading books. So similarly in the house, if you, depending on the distraction level of your child, again, if you feel that they would be more energized doing a particular lesson sitting in the garden or on the balcony, by all means do that. So look at the learning preference and the ability of your child and use these tips in accordance to that.
Absolutely. And I really like the anchor of getting the child into the school uniform at the designated time. And that creates a shift in them that, okay, now we're working, we're in school, and it causes
Yeah.
them to
In
become
fact,
more
Arjun, there is,
serious.
in psychology, there is a concept called enclothed cognition. That only means your clothes are actually sending signal to your brain, what kind of output energy you should be in. So same concept applies here. When you dress them up in active clothes, they are mentally more alert.
Good. And these are generic anchors that can be used with all kids. And kids independently might have different learning styles as well. Do you have any ideas on how a parent can discern what is the learning style of their child, and then after that, teach the child in the style that the child prefers to learn?
Yeah, Arjun, even for adults, and I'm sure you would agree with me on that, the most popular learning ability or learning style method that we use is the KAV method, wherein, some learners, and same thing applies to the kids as well. There are some kids who like to learn kinesthetically, that means by doing. There are some kids who would prefer an audio approach. You just give them instructions verbally and fab, that's all they need. They really act well on that. There are other learners who do very well when there are visual tutorials. So recognize that, observe that if you haven't already done that, and find out what's the dominant style. And in all possibility, there could be a situation where there is no dominant style. You're not able to recognize it, or maybe they haven't developed it as yet. So in that situation, use a mix of audio, visual, and kinesthetic learning resources to build onto their mental and physical ability and well-being. Yeah. And similarly, another concept is left brainers and right brainers. Yeah. Right brainers are more artistic, more creative, and left brainers are more logical and structured. So try to observe your child and figure out what's the learning preference of your child.
Mm. Because I find very often that when I coach parents, typically the parent may have an auditory preferred style, their preferred learning style is auditory. And because they have learned all their lives auditorily, they now insist that their children should do the same. And this creates conflict or some kind of like a dissonance between them and the child. What you're talking about is the style that you prefer to learn with as a parent doesn't necessarily have to be the style with which your child prefers to learn.
Absolutely.
Do you do one-on-one sessions with parents as well, Mala?
Yeah, Arjun, as you introduced me earlier, I'm a life coach and I'm doing loads of pro bono sessions these days to help the parent community. So I have slotted 5 sessions in the next 15 days. These are free session to help the parent community, 30 minutes each. And if any parent is watching me right now and would like to reach out to me to avail and benefit from these parent consulting session, by all means, please do that. Like Arjuna introduced me earlier, I have a training company called Thrive Training and Coaching. You can find me on Facebook as the name of my page is Thrive. You can also find me on Instagram as Thrive Training and Coaching. So and my email is mala@thriveupwards.com. So please feel free to reach out if you feel you can benefit from these 30 minutes consulting sessions, which I'm offering free right now.
Excellent, excellent. It's good that you've provided your coordinates so that parents know where to come to. You know, one of the pain points that you and me have been hearing for years now, and probably will continue to hear for many, many years to come, is the whole concept where parents complain about my child is constantly on the iPad, constantly on the phone, this whole notion of too much screen time. How do we manage our child's addiction to devices? That's my first question. And my second question is, isn't homeschooling in some way making kids more addicted to the screen?
Yeah, Arjun, I feel a digital transformation has definitely come through, and more so with the COVID-19 period. And I feel there is a need that we develop a positive relationship with the digital transformation that has happened, and recognize what are the benefits that it's giving us, and make use and focus on that. For example, us having this interview, if there was no Zoom technology, then we would not be able to meet each other, sitting in our homes at the comfort of our homes right now. And similarly for kids as well, the homeschooling, I believe, has been possible because of digital transformation itself. So talking about screen time, me as a mother, I differentiate between educational technology and entertainment technology. So educational technology, when it comes to all these different learning resources that are now available online and are beautifully supporting the learning of our kids. I mean, I sometimes when I am sitting with my daughter doing her studies, I feel like, where were these stuff when we were children? We had a notebook and a pen. We had to just rely on our notebooks. Now, with these different digital tools that are available, it is making the learning so much more engaging and interesting. So let's not just shy away from these resources by thinking that it's adding to our screen time. I would say definitely limit the screen time, because the screens emit blue light, which alerts our brain to thinking that it's daytime. Yeah, and it takes up to 2 hours. It's the same light, Arjun, you'll be surprised, the same light that the surgeons are using on their head when they are doing surgery to increase their alertness, right, and tell the eyes and the brain that it's daytime. So definitely avoid screen time at least 2 hours before the kids go to sleep. A good idea would also be to invest in a blue light protector, whether it is your monitors or whether it's your mobile phones. It's not too expensive. You can get that from Amazon. And you know most importantly, tell yourself that, is this educational technology or is it entertainment technology? Because the way I see the world is moving to, we will not be able to contain educational technology or technology in general in our lives going ahead. So limit the exposure and develop a positive relationship with it, instead of just mindlessly watching cartoons on TV or just mindlessly scrolling down.
I like the whole idea of embracing the technology rather than resisting it, because this is something we cannot change. It
Yeah,
is the new milieu. And whether we like it or not, that's how it is going to be as we go forward.
absolutely.
I had another thought, and this has to do with kids and their friends. At the time of this lockdown, kids are at home, and what do you do to fulfill this very primal need of theirs, which is the need for association? Uh, any ideas on that?
Arjun, human beings are social beings. Just as adults, we are going through different emotions right now. Trust me, kids are also to a large extent going through these different various emotions right now. And in a day of 24 hours, let's say, Yeah. um, we need as human beings certain amount of feel good hormone, and in the absence of social interaction as adults or as kids, that feel good hormone is on all time low. So as adults, we have this choice to pick up our phone and get connected with our friends, with our family. But as kids, I feel that depending on the age, again, they might not be always in a position to facilitate interacting with their friends, be it neighbors or be it classmates. So as parents, as mothers, as fathers, as guardians, even as educators, we owe it to our kids to organize and facilitate these interactions amongst their friends, not just with us. So right now I happen to be a class representative, and I plan to reach out to the different parents in my daughter's class and to ask them, let's organize a Zoom date or any other video conferencing tool that you prefer. Let's organize some kind of a play, like playing hangman. Hangman helps to develop their spellings. So or just having a general chat completely away for, not, it's not always about focusing on learning, it's just venting out. And organizing these digital dates with their grandparents. Many of the kids are not able to meet and interact with their cousins, their grandparents, they're missing them. So facilitate this, and trust me, that effort and the time that you take to organize this, when you see your children speaking their heart out and having that amazing smile on their face, the effort will be completely worth it.
Hmm. And this kind of puts the kids at ease as well, because once it's kind of like a reward that you've given them, playtime, interaction, association with their friends. Really,
Yep.
really powerful. That's a great thing that parents really must do. Any comments on kids of different age groups? Are there different methods or philosophies that you recommend for a teenage child versus a child who's maybe 5, 6, or 7?
Um, uh, in one of my recent consultation with the parents, one interesting thing that came out is e-safety. So that's about ensuring that your children, especially I'm talking about the older children or the teenagers, ensuring that the content that they are accessing to, because Arjun, in the online world, it's just unlimited content out there, right? So there are certain blockers in place that you can use as parents to ensure they are only able to access what they are meant to access. Yeah, for YouTube as well, there is a kids version which blocks out the rest of the content. Otherwise, also on Chrome as well, there is a blocker. So these are safety devices. You're just ensuring the safety of your child, because kids get intrigued very fast. Even for my little 2.5-year-old, if I give him an iPad in hand for some time and he's enjoying a cartoon, he looks at something else like an Halloween figure or something, he immediately jumps to that, because he doesn't know whether it's good or bad. It's just inviting him, come check me out. And then he starts to form his own opinion about it. And he's just telling me, mama, that there is someone under the bed. And I got very surprised the other day that what's happening. And then I backtracked it, and I realized that he's seen something on, when he was able to scroll down himself on the iPad, that has created this fear in him. So recently I was having this conversation with the parent, and the parent said that even while the kids were interacting, the teenagers were interacting with each other on the Zoom platform, or on some kind of a platform to meet up, um, one of the kid came up with the challenge that we have to watch horror movies. And they came up, yeah, very interestingly, yeah, so they came up with the theme that this week everybody has to watch this movie called Annabelle. And it's a horrifying movie. So it's important for parents to allow these platforms to interact. However, be mindful what they are accessing and what conversations they are having. And the only key to crack this is be open to your kids. Communicate very openly, ask them specific questions, give them specific praises, instead of just saying how was your day today and you will get one word answer. be very specific. So what was the interaction about? Be friendly with them. You have to develop this relationship over a period of time, Arjun. It would not happen in a day. So be more vulnerable, share your own feelings with them as well. Tell them that your this specific behavior of yours hurted me. Use I statements for them, and they just play on to what you show them. The behavior will just be duplicated by them as well. So take care of a
Very
complete
interesting.
well-being. Arjun, very important to remember here is they will not remember when we talk about the AC period after COVID. Right now we are in DC during COVID, isn't it? So when we talk about the AC time in our life, when they turn back, they would not remember, oh, I completed my geography homework, or I completed my homework, maths homework. What they would remember is how they felt. How full was their emotional cup during this time? What was the vibe around in the house? How much time, the love time they got to spend with their parents, grandparents, and their siblings? So let's focus more on physical, mental, and relationship well-being, more than being focused on whether they completed this task or that task when it comes to homeschooling.
Excellent, excellent. And this really requires the parent to be mature enough to understand that this period is a time for an opportunity for holistic development for your child, rather than just checking boxes and making sure that work gets done. And yeah, another friend of mine said, I'm trying not to be a boss to my children.
Yeah, very important, Arjun, to be
The worst thing.
enablers and not teachers. Very rightly you said,
Mm,
it is also a time to make our kids more independent when it comes to studying. So if you be next
mm,
to your kid all the time, you are making the kid dependent on you. Your kid will keep looking up to you. Is this sentence correct? Is this maths problem correct? So I would say, as a thumb rule, use 45 minutes as an approach. Give them a task, explain them what they have to do depending on the age. Yeah, if they are able to understand it themselves, definitely make them more independent. If not, explain them the task, break away from there. Excellent time to make them more independent. My last parents teacher meeting, this is about 3 months back, when COVID was nowhere in the picture, I asked the teacher, how can I support my kids learning? What can I do as a parent? And one tip that the teacher gave me, and I haven't forgotten, a very practical tip that the teacher gave me was, make your kid more independent. This will help them in long run. So during the regular schooling days, sometimes, out of time pressure, we didn't have that much time. We just want to make sure that the task is done and we just move on to the next part of the routine. But during this time, we have that time to develop that independence, to develop certain life skills that we've been wanting to have time for a parent as well as for the kid.
mm.
Yeah,
And
life skills, Arjun, just like hanging the clothes outside, helping the mom in the
wow.
kitchen, simple life skills. And try to align the homeschooling learning or the life learning with the skills you are doing at the home as well. For example, you're sitting in the garden or a balcony. Talk about the parts of the plant. So maybe currently in your homeschooling, you are learning about biology, or the parts of the plant or whatever. So align that to your current world as well, as far as possible. You're sitting in the kitchen and you're studying heat dynamics in your school, so align that, and just bring in all the learning together. This is an excellent opportunity for parents and kids to use this time to develop certain life skills, and to think of out of the box learning solutions.
Fabulous, really, really fabulous. And this, to me, encapsulate the whole concept of conscious parenting, everything that you've spoken about in the last few minutes, and indeed through this entire interview. In closing, Mala, is there any easy way for parents to remember all of what you've shared? Is there like a memorable formula or an acronym that you have that can summarize everything that you've shared in this video and can be like an easy reference guide for parents?
Yeah, Arjun, I will summarize all the tips that I have given so far under SSS, triple S, to make it easy for all the parents who are listening to us right now. The first S would be support. ensure that you have enough support around you, ensure that you have good discussion with the family, you have shared expectation with the kids, ensure that there is a good system in place in terms of having a workspace, in terms of having physical clothes, ensure there is self-care. So very important in airline, coming from aviation, as you introduced me, some of the people who are listening to us right now would remember that I have spent a lot of time with aviation. And in aviation, we say when the oxygen drops, first you pull out the mask for yourself and wear the mask for yourself, and then help others. So as parents, a lot of the times we are living with that guilt that I'm not doing enough. Always remember that if you take good care of yourself, then only you would be in a better position to take good care of your children. So the third S is self-care. I'm repeating myself: support, system, and self-care. Think about these three when it comes to supporting homeschooling, making it more effective. And who knows, if you're able to use some of these tips, you might as well start to enjoy homeschooling to the extent when the time comes back to go back to school, you would wonder, I think I was better off doing schooling at home.
Fabulous, fabulous. Mala, I think this interview has been so enriching for me, just to kind of observe the things that you have been practically doing and incorporating with your family, and the blessing that you're providing to thousands of other parents by teaching them how to become better parents and how to parent consciously rather than
Absolutely.
unconsciously, right?
Absolutely,
So
Arjun. Yeah.
very good, very good.
So, Arjun, I would
Excellent.
just like to end this now that we're coming to the end. My last
Yes.
thought would be to, as parents, sometimes we try to eliminate all the hardship in our children's life. One wise person said, don't take the privilege of doing the struggle away from your children, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, don't try to create a struggle-free life or a life free of hardships for them. It is important that we give them certain amount of eustress, which is a positive stress. We share with them what is the reality and prepare them to be handling struggle and challenging situations in their life that they will be coming across. So I would use the analogy of vaccination. When we inoculate our children, when we vaccinate our children, vaccination is basically a small dosage of the same disease that you're preparing their bodies to fight in future. So chicken pox, when you're giving them a chicken pox vaccination, you are giving them a small dosage of chicken pox itself actually. So when they grow up and they face chicken pox in their environment, they would have already developed that immunity against chicken pox to recognize it and fight it. So similarly, when you prepare your children, give them certain levels of responsibilities, certain level of tasks and assignments, and certain level of positive stress that will prepare them to deal with bigger stresses and challenges that will come in their life. And by no means you can stop these challenges to come in their life. That even makes them actually grow and become better. As they say, no challenges, no success. Know your challenges and know your success. I would like to close by saying that, Arjun.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. And once again, for those of you who want to reach Mala, can you once again just give your coordinates and then we'll close this video.
Sure.
Your
So,
email ID, yeah.
sure. Arjun, my training company is called Thrive Training and Coaching. You can find me on Facebook. I have a page called Thrive Upwards on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram as Thrive Training and Coaching. My email is mala@thriveupwards.com. I'm also happy to give out my mobile number. If there are parents in across the globe, we can, video conferencing is now allowing us to reach out to each other easily. So 00971562218 Feel free to connect with me. I'm more than happy to support this homeschooling journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us, Mala.